Hey Sis, it's a weekly shakedown of the binary walls around us.
Breaking it out and building a bridge.
Checking our biases with empathy and humility and questioning the status quo.
It's about building allyship that is intentional and confident.
I was signing up for like a music account somewhere and they were asking for my gender. And they did have a line saying prefer not to say, which I thought was great. But I kind of thought like really, I mean, I can see age demographic that way. But are guys listening to music that are so different from, like, do we have to gender our listening preferences? Because like I would have quite a big mix. Like mine would not be stereotypical female music, I don't think.
I think gender is definitely a dying like demographic to use in like statistics. Like for instance, like even if you're looking at like Stats Canada, like things like they might have like male, female, other, and then they might track like how many individuals of the other are actually responding, or how many individuals might identify as something other than the binary. But I think that's the only type of information most people really track nowadays is, you know, like you're not going to be like, oh, women age such and such, and then you can directly target women like that. Like that, I work a lot in marketing and communications, so, you know, looking at statistics, I never, ever consider gender to be a factor. Like I don't know how you would tailor something towards a specific gender nowadays, because
it's really tricky. Like, and it's say, for example, for a company like, if you're an insurance company, it's like, are you asking for gender or are you asking for sex as assigned at birth? Because say, you know, statistically, I guess testosterone can be linked to young drivers being more reckless and that. But that, you know, there are females that, you know, that have testosterone and men have testosterone. And so like, what are you really asking? You know?
That's another like really important question. Like, what are you asking? Because there are some times when I'm answering those, and I mean, I identify as non-binary, so I'm like, if there's no other, like, sometimes I'm like, what do I click? Kind of thing. And more often than not, I will click female, because I, like, especially if it's medical or, like, statistic based, and also especially if it's involving, like, car insurance, because you identify as a female, you get cheaper car insurance.
Here we go.
I milk that a little bit as a trans person.
Why not?
But,
there are certain things. There has to be some.
There has to be some benefits to being trans, you know.
Yeah. But if they're looking for real data too, like often I'll just check the other, because it's like I'm not gonna throw it out there.
Well,
so if all you're collecting from that is people that don't want to be gendered, you're not actually collecting
authentic
like this
trans
person
people,
must be trans or non-binary. No. So you really need to think about that as a company when you are asking that information. If you want to be intentionally inclusive, don't ask it unless you really need it.
Like the only times I ever see it effective to get, it's not even gender statistics, it's strictly sex statistics, and that would be either you are biologically, and I mean biologically, female, male, intersex, or other kind of like mix of what have you. Would be like, for instance, for myself, like I have a heart condition, and people who have female reproductive parts are more likely to have it other than compared to people who have male reproductive parts. And it's really interesting. This is very, very sciencey, so I'm not going to get too into it. But since I started testosterone, it actually made my heart condition better, because of how estrogen impacts my heart condition. So that's why, as a trans person, I can see that there's a lot of benefits in understanding like the sex statistics and that, but at the same time, it needs to be meaningful.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, I know for my child, I just found out, so we just got their new health card, and I hadn't changed the gender marker on it because I didn't think we could, because he was born overseas.
Right.
And legally in that country where he was born in Ireland, and you cannot change your name and your gender marker on your birth cert there until you're 16, and you have to go to court, and you have to be living as your gender for 2 years, and it's all this red transphobic tape. So here, though, I phoned them and I just asked them about my options. And I said, look, the passport has been done. So that's a federal document. Wouldn't that kind of gazump a birth cert? And I said they were able to make an accommodation because legally we could not change the birth certificate here. And they said, I don't see why not. Let me check. They got back to me and they're like, absolutely, that should be fine. Send us in the passport, a copy, and we will update the gender marker. But then they asked me, do you want an M put on the health card, or would you like no gender marker whatsoever? And it was such a tough one because in the end, I went with the M because I know I think that's what he would want. And I thought maybe not having a gender marker could raise more flags or questions if someone was looking at his ID.
Yeah.
But then I thought, what if you're in an emergency situation and you can't communicate? Is it important that they know your biological anatomy?
Yeah.
And could having the M perhaps cause some problems?
Yeah. It's such a tough topic. Because, like, I personally, and primarily based off of my own experience within the healthcare system, I see a lot more benefits to having your health card match whatever your biological makeup is. But then again, like, that also raises the question, like, what is biological makeup? Because you can't rely completely on hormones. You can't necessarily completely rely on, like, if you have, a penis or a vagina kind of thing. You can't rely on those things because not everyone is so black and white. Like, human bodies are different.
Right.
But I mean, like, for me, for instance, like, mine still says female. I'll walk in there, I have, like, a beard and, like, facial hair, and they're like, okay. And, like, earlier this year I got a hysterectomy and I was, like, in the hospital, like, in the women's ward. Like, it was very, coded to be a female space. But I think as, like, a trans person who's kind of masculine presenting, challenging that, I find, as existing in those spaces it's kind of fun for me, like, if I can say it in a weird way, just because it's helping me, like, break the stereotype that, like, this is what a woman is, like, proactively.
So you felt comfortable in that environment, even though it was essentially like a pink medicine environment?
Yeah. And I mean, this is 100% just my experience,
right.
Like, in no shape or form. Like, I know so many people who that would not be comfortable, and that is so valid. But, like,
right.
For me, for instance, in my own experience, like, I found it was really, really comforting because I felt that a lot of the doctors there, fortunately enough, were very, like, aware of who I was, because I'm in and out of the hospitals all the time with my friggin' heart condition. But just the fact that they were, like, accommodating, and it was really nice to see that they were, like, using correct pronouns. Like, doctors would come in and ask me questions about me. Like, it was a very, like, authentic experience rather than me having to feel like I have to educate them on everything that I'm, like, why I'm doing this, right?
That's great. And
Yeah.
was that at the QE2?
Yeah, it was at the QE2, yeah.
That's great. I think that there's so many things they are starting to get right about trans-inclusive healthcare. Did you have a private room?
I did, yeah. I opted in, and thankfully enough, like, I did and do have insurance at this time, so I was able to opt into that. And I mean, I could 100% agree it'd probably be a whole different scenario if I had to share a room with someone, because if it's someone who's not as accepting, they're like, why the man in my room kind of thing, and like, have those tough conversations.
If they're uncomfortable, that's just going to make you feel like, I deserve space here too, and I can't take that on right now with everything I'm experiencing and going through.
Yeah. So I definitely opted in to have, like, a private room, simply because, like, as you just said, like, if they're uncomfortable because of the type of person that I am, that's going to make me uncomfortable, and it's just going to be, like, all around, like, a bad experience for everyone. So yeah. Well,
I'm so glad it wasn't a bad experience.
That's really like, genuinely, I did not have high hopes. I was kind of I wasn't. I was like, nope, this is probably going to suck. Like, this is going to be awful. But it was really, really great. I don't have any complaints, so I mean, that was really nice, at least. So
that's an interesting one then about the gender marker, and that I'll have to really think about think about that, and when the next one comes up for
Yeah.
renewal,
I
if they
think-
do all
and
the time, I'll let him decide.
Yeah,
Obviously,
and I
he'll
think
be
it
older and-
really depends on the individual. Like, because of the type of person that I am, and based on my experiences and the way that I've been able to grow and deal with kind of transphobia, I was more comfortable doing it that way. But I think, as you said, like, it's really important for him to decide, like, what he wants to do and what he feels most confident doing.
Right.
Because I know plenty of other individuals who choose to do, like, no gender whatsoever. I think it's an X on it.
Well, on the health card, it's just nothing.
Oh,
they
really?
Just, they don't have anything. So maybe that is the way to go, because
Yeah.
it gives you the opportunity
I was gonna
to
say,
be asked and then to share.
Yeah, no, I think I was going to say, because if it was an X, I would definitely, for myself, I wouldn't be more inclined to do that. But if it was just completely nothing, I think that would be a better instance, because then you don't have to have that conversation, be like, what's your actual, like, they could just kind of look at you and either infer or have to ask those questions, instead of, like, look at your ID and automatically start thinking, like, okay, this person's trans, kind of thing. Or it could just, because...
Could be, or so if you can talk, you can say, oh, I'm male, but if they need to, they can share, but by the way, or if they're incapacitated and can't speak, then it does give that pause to to actually look a little bit deeper as to why there's no gender marker, and make sure we're not missing anything as a medical health professional.
If you are in the country, or you are incapacitated, I struggle to say that word, in the country that you have been receiving like trans health care, and for instance, I believe in Nova Scotia, they already have it on your health card. Like, if you swipe it, it'll have, like, notes or whatever on it, because a lot of times, I know, especially with my heart condition, they have it directly on there, so I believe they can add notes on there too, to my knowledge.
That makes sense, actually. It's kind of like an alert bracelet in a way.
Kind of, yeah. So if, like, for instance, they would at least, I'm hoping that's a thing. I want to believe it's a thing, but maybe I'm maybe I'm reinventing the wheel here. Because if they had something like that, that would make more sense, because then an individual, if they were incapacitated, they could just go into the system and be like, okay, cool, like, this is what this person is, and they don't have to be like, where's your health card, or like, where's this information. I find healthcare systems are so backwards nowadays. Like, everything should be digitalized. Like, there's no need for us to be carrying around health cards. But
no, or having to wear a bracelet. Well, I guess a bracelet.
If it is a medical alert, then yes, but right.
But for a hospital, they should have everything in their system that can transfer over to any hospital that you might be, or accessible. Yeah.
And then, I mean, in some way, if someone is transphobic, that would automatically be a warning sign that, like, they wouldn't want to serve this individual, right? And then that would make it less likely for trans folks to be associated with transphobic individuals. Because I think that's probably one of the hardest things, is that when you go into a hospital environment, you have to have those tough conversations. You have to out yourself pretty much immediately if it involves, personal stuff. So...
Well, that's all the time we have today, folks. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Hey Sis.
If you have any questions you want to ask or want to join in on the conversation, email us at connect@simplygoodform.com.
Thank you all, and remember, inclusion matters.